Hey guys, in this video I'm going to show you how I finished the rear D pillar of my Sprinter van using upholstery fabric to give it a nice homey feel. With respect to materials for this project, you really don't need too much equipment, but I highly suggest that you invest in good quality fabric and foam. Let me show you what I have. So I've got my aluminum ducting tape, aluminum flashing, tin snips, and that's all for the prep. And then our Marathon Tweed or Gemini Tweed, this is in color silver, and 1/8 inch Landau foam, 2 cans of Liongrip, fabric scissors, and painter's tape. I have links in the description below if you want more details. And time-wise, I would budget about 4 to 6 hours to do this project. Maybe more if you're a big perfectionist. The first thing I did was make sure the metal was all clean, and then I applied aluminum ducting tape all over the smaller holes to make sure that we had a smooth surface to work on. Now along the D pillar, you'll notice some massive cavities that need more than just tape to ensure a firm backing. So here I used aluminum flashing, which I cut with tin snips into the shape required, and then taped those down with the aluminum ducting tape. Now there was an awkward piece here in the upright that I did have to recruit Tim's services for.
So to fill this gap in the rear pillar here, I took a 3D scan of the part and then modeled this and printed it in ASA.
And just like that, we were back in business and able to tape that on with the same aluminum ducting tape. I'm trying to brainstorm right now what's the best way to line up the foam, which is going to be underneath the upholstery fabric, because as we wrap it on the inside, if we have the 1/8 inch foam, it's going to be pretty much impossible to tuck under this gasket. So I think we're going to stop it at this ridge here and then continue the upholstery fabric past that, and that will blend better with the gasket. I'll be pulling back that waterproof gasket, so I'm going to mark with Sharpie the end of it where it sits in neutral. So when I pull it back, I'll know where to put the fabric up until. For reference, I did the side strip as 70 inches tall and 6 inches wide for the foam. This stuff is like contact cement, so you have to put it on both substrates and wait for it to get pretty dry. Wait for like a few minutes until it's no longer sticky to touch, and then you put those pieces together and they do not move. This is great with high temperature. It's actually called high temperature, high performance spray adhesive. We found it to be better than the 3M90 spray and better than the LePage contact cement. Liongrip gets our vote. We use it for all of our upholstery needs in the van. Here I'm using a scrap piece of material to make sure that my spray is applied only to the area that I want the foam to stick to. So I was careful to get the glue all over that D pillar, but avoiding getting too far into the gasket as that's going to be pulled back. And now it's time to do the same thing on the foam. Okay, so that's what we want. It's not really sticking to the back of my hand. And same thing there, so it's ready to go. When placing the foam down, we made sure the bottom edge was parallel to the floor and the upright was following the top ridge, so we'd have a nice straight line along the entire pillar. Once I was happy with the placement along the outer lip, I slowly and firmly pressed the foam into the rest of the pillar, working my way towards the inside of the van. This side of the D pillar is all foamed up on both sides. I got that side and that side. So I have to do the top. I've got it cut out here. It is 55 inches long by 8 inches wide, and that's going to be big enough to wrap around. It's a little bit wider at the top. But I do want to remove these 2 latches to make life easier, so I'm going to label them to make sure that they go in the exact same spot. There is a little bit of wiggle room in there, so you can see I labeled that D, but I am going to trace around it to make sure that I put it back in the exact same spot. And this is a size T30 Torx socket to loosen the bolts here. Quick change of plans. As I was loosening the bolt, I noticed that they are attached just to a plate which is behind here, bolted on there rather than the main chassis. So there is some movement between, and I did not want to lose that plate. So I'm going to leave these bolts in so that way the plate is not going to go anywhere. Here I'm measuring and marking the center of the top beam and also center of the foam so that I can start in the middle and work my way out once the adhesive is applied. I also taped over the latch bolts and was careful to avoid spraying the gasket. Once the line grip had set on both surfaces, I started in the middle and worked my way out laterally again, lining up the foam on the outer edge first before wrapping it inwards. I ended up removing some extra foam from the edges to facilitate the wrapping inwards. Now I'm cutting the fabric. We were using Marathon Tweed, which is very high quality, water resistant, and easy to clean. For the upright portions of the D pillar, I cut my fabric at 72 inches long by 7 inches wide. If your fabric has an unfinished edge like mine did, make sure you're not including that in your measurement. And now I'm just cutting down the middle of this to yield my 2 upright pieces. Time to pull back the gasket a few millimeters to clearly expose the Sharpie line that I drew at the beginning, as this is where the fabric will start. I prepped the surface by taping over the actual gasket, then began spraying the foam and the fabric. Once the adhesive was set, I was ready to get started. I pulled the gasket back, as you can see, and so you got the Sharpie line. So that is where I need the fabric to go up to. So I'm starting on this outer edge, pressing it in there, and then leaving the inside loose until afterwards, because I've got plenty of extra material, but I want to make sure that the outside seam is really smooth. Same prep happening on this side, pulling the gasket back, putting the tape on, and the spray adhesive followed by the fabric. Slowly working from the outside to inside, making sure to keep even tension on the material so as to avoid any creases. The next day I went back and cut out the foam that was over the spot where the latches sit, following my traced Sharpie line. And I also rethreaded the bolts of the latch to prepare for the fabric application. Onto the top piece, so I've been prepping the top where the latches are going to go. I've cut out where the foam was covering the latch point, and I've taped it now so that I don't get any of the spray adhesive in there. The other thing I did was cut my fabric, so this is 9 inches by 57 inches long. That gives me plenty of length and width to cover the top of the D-pillar there. And as I did with the foam, I'm going to start in the middle, so I did mark out the center of my fabric. I just used tape there because I obviously don't want to put Sharpie on my upholstery fabric. And then I have another mark up there on the foam so that I can line those guys up. Pull the gasket off, and then we'll get spraying with the Liongrip and get started. By now you guys know the drill, but just be mindful that this top beam is shaped differently than the sides and stresses the fabric a little bit differently due to the curve. So keeping even tension on the fabric is very important as you press it into the foam. Next, I cut a slit in the fabric to access the latch bolts and reinstalled the latches into their original positions as outlined by the foam. Did a quick test with the doors to make sure that they close properly, and it is sealed well. I still obviously have to do the corners. That is a very tedious spot, so I'm gonna brainstorm a little bit on how I'm gonna tackle it. It is a new day. I'm back to try to work on those upper corners, so this is what I'm thinking. Lots of tension on this as I pull it this way because there's literally zero stretch. So I think I'm gonna cut back a little bit to make it go higher. I still have the upright that goes until like here. And we are gonna have cabinets along the inner side, so it's not as crucial that there's full coverage and that it's wrinkle free or anything. I'll do some relief cuts along the outsides here to see if that'll give me enough mobility in the material to get it nice and flat along this portion, which is what I'm concerned about. Sorry, you can't see anything I'm doing here, but essentially I'm just pressing into the corner and seeing where I can create relief cuts so that the material lays flat along the visible areas. This Marathon Tweed material that we're using has virtually no stretch, which makes the corners very difficult to navigate around. At the back of the D-pillar here, we're going to have cabinets along the side, so you're not going to be able to see the upright portion. Hence why this ugly portion there doesn't matter as much. What's really important is that this bottom part is nice and smooth. I'm still going to be putting a strip of fabric here to hide that junction. If you do need to wrap around here and have the inside very smoothly finished, make sure that you get a fabric with stretch. In our previous fans, we did use a 4-way stretch fabric, which made it much easier along this part. It definitely did not look like this, but this will all be hidden and it'll be totally fine. Okay, so this is the piece of fabric. I'm just folding the edges over to make sure that the ends are all clean, and then I'll be placing it on top of that junction like that, so skinny side out towards the door and then wide side fans into the van, and then each side is going to be folded down so it hides the seam like that. So I'm just going to spray that in place and then do the same on the other side. Here's that same piece of material that I'm prepping. I'm going to spray it with a healthy dose of Liongrip and fold the edges inwards to create a seam, and then I'll repeat that same process for the second strip, which will go on the other side. Sprayed the glue on, and then I have the tape as the outline for where the strip is going to go so I can easily place it on. Same as we did for all the other fabric applications, start on the outside, making sure that the tip is in line with the black Sharpie mark, and apply firm pressure working inwards. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is a wrap. You'll see this part, and then you'll see the outer part from the back door. I hope you found that video helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the comment section. I would love to answer them. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel to follow along for more building tips and our van travels. See you next time.